1800 hours Pakistan Standard Time. Assalamu alaikum. This is Radio Pakistan. The news read by Daman Zaman. The headlines. The National Assembly today passed the Anti-Terrorism Amendment Bill 2020 and the United Nations Security Council Amendment Bill 2020 to fulfill certain requirements of the Financial Action Task Force. The World Bank has recognized Pakistan's efforts for stabilization of the economy and overall reforms process. A senior Indian diplomat was summoned to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Islamabad today to register Pakistan's strong protest over ceasefire violations along the line of control. In the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the Indian troops and their fresh acts of state terrorism have martyred two more Kashmiri youths in Rajouri district. The Yemenis government and the Southern Transitional Council have agreed to accelerate the implementation of Riyadh Agreement. Hajj rituals began in Makkah today with the arrival of pilgrims in Mina. And now the news in detail. The National Assembly today passed the Anti-Terrorism Amendment Bill 2020 and the United Nations Security Council Amendment Bill 2020 with a majority vote amid sloganeering from the opposition benches. The legislation is related to fulfill certain requirements of the Financial Action Task Force in order to bring Pakistan out of the Financial Action Task Force's grey list. The legislation is also aimed at empowering the federal government to direct the authorities in Pakistan to implement various measures in compliance with the United Nations Security Council resolutions, including the freezing and seizure of assets, travel ban, and arms embargo on the entities and individuals who are designated on the sanctions list of the United Nations. It is worth mentioning here that the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1373 requires member states to implement counter-terrorism measures, especially countering the financing of terrorism through the domestic laws. This obligation is implemented in Pakistan through Anti-Pakistan Act 1997. The National Assembly was informed today that around 95% of the stranded Pakistanis have been brought back home in about 2.5 months in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. Responding to a question during question hour, the Parliamentary Secretary on Foreign Affairs Andalib Abbas said about 250,000 stranded Pakistanis were repatriated from across the world, while the majority of Pakistani Zaireen have returned from Iran. Replying to a question, the Minister for Energy, Umar Ayub Khan, said the government wants to hold a thorough investigation into the fuel shortage occurred during last month so that the elements involved in hoarding and creating artificial scarcity of petrol could be brought to task. He said a commission has already been formed by the federal cabinet in its last meeting to probe into the matter. The Minister for Communications and Postal Services, Murad Saeed, said there will be no compromise on accountability and no NRO will be extended to anyone. Speaking in the National Assembly, he said it is regrettable that the opposition wanted NRO plus for extending support to an important legislation meant for national interests of the country. The minister said no concession will be given to those who have plundered Pakistan. The House has now been prorogued. The outgoing country director of the World Bank in Pakistan, Pachamutu Ilangowan, paid a farewell call on Prime Minister Imran Khan in Islamabad today. Pachamutu Ilangowan thanked the Prime Minister for his support during his stay in Pakistan. He recognized Pakistan's efforts towards stabilization of the economy and overall reforms process, including response to COVID-19 pandemic. The Prime Minister appreciated the partnership with the World Bank and wished the outgoing World Bank country director success for his next assignment. Meanwhile, members of the National Assembly belonging to Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Malik Mohammad Amir Dogar and Malik Mohammad Ehsanullah Tiwana separately called on Prime Minister Imran Khan in Islamabad. During the meetings, they discussed matters pertaining to legislation and the respective constituencies. The Sindh Governor Imran Ismail called on the President Dr. Arif Alvi in Islamabad today to discuss the situation emerging in Karachi after the recent rains. They discussed the situation caused by recent rains in Karachi. Different proposals for the resolution of the problems of Karachi were also reviewed. There is a significant improvement in the number of those recovering from COVID-19 in Pakistan, with the total tally reaching 244,883. According to the National Command and Operations Center, 1,063 new cases have surfaced in the country during the last 24 hours, taking the toll to 276,288. These include 119,398 in the Sindh province, 92,452 in the Punjab, 33,724 in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, 11,654 in Balochistan, 14,963 in the Islamabad Capital Territory, 2,055 in Azad Kashmir, and 2,042 in Gilgit-Baltistan. 27 deaths have been reported during the last 24 hours. 21,256 tests were carried out during this period. This is Radio Pakistan. A senior Indian diplomat was summoned to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Islamabad today to register Pakistan's strong protest over the ceasefire violations by the Indian occupation forces along the line of control. In a statement, the Foreign Office spokesperson Aisha Faruqi said 3 innocent civilians sustained serious injuries in the indiscriminate and unprovoked firing by the Indian occupation forces in Rakh Chikri sector along the line of control yesterday. She said the Indian occupation forces along the line of control and the working boundary have been continuously targeting the civilian populated areas with artillery fire, heavy caliber mortars and automatic weapons. Aisha Faruqi said this year India has committed 1,823 ceasefire violations to date, resulting in 14 martyrdoms and serious injuries to 138 innocent civilians. In the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the Indian troops in their fresh acts of state terrorism have martyred 2 more Kashmiri youths in Rajouri district and injured another during a military operation in Naushera area of the district. Meanwhile, posters have appeared in different areas of the held territory asking the people to resist India's wicked plans to change the demographic composition and erase the Muslim identity of the territory. On the other hand, the APHC AJK chapter at a meeting in Islamabad expressed concern over the attempts being made by India to change the demography of occupied Kashmir, atrocities and arbitrary arrests of Hurriyat leaders and activists in the held territory. The Yemenis government and the Southern Transitional Council have agreed to accelerate the implementation of the Riyadh Agreement. In a tweet, the Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud said it is a positive step towards reaching a sustainable political solution in Yemen under the auspices of the United Nations. The annual Hajj rituals have begun in Mecca with the arrival of pilgrims in Mina. Only around 1,000 pilgrims will perform Hajj this year due to crowd control restrictions put in place by Saudi Arabia in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. Instead of over 2 million people performing Hajj normally in the recent years, for the first time in decades, the international travelers have been barred from the Hajj rituals due to coronavirus pandemic. Some 70% of the worshippers this year are foreign residents of Saudi Arabia, while the rest being Saudi nationals between the ages of 20 and 50 years. As part of the precautionary measures, the pilgrims will wear face masks and observe social distancing. The Saudi authorities have also banned touching Khana-e-Kaaba and Hajr-e-Aswad. And finally, the weather. Mainly hot and humid weather is expected in most parts of the country during the next 12 hours. However, rain with wind thunder showers are expected in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Upper and Central Punjab and Kashmir, while rain is also expected at a few places in Lower Sindh. And that is the end of this news bulletin. For more news and analyses, log on to our website radio.gov.pk, and you can also watch live video streaming of our bulletins on the link facebook.com/Radio Pakistan News Official.